to say. But so should I share my screen?
And Alex, maybe it makes sense to clarify that. Would it be for all the weeks in the future, or is it only for this week?
You mean the shift?
Yeah.
I guess for all the weeks. I mean, so like usually we should have one actual week for a week, but since the weeks are relative in data engineering Zoomcamp, I guess. or what do you mean?
Then no, I was just wondering if we already decided to move all the weeks, also the homework, basically.
Yeah, because I saw if we go to now, let me try to open it. Because I saw the deadline for week 3. So here.
Yeah, it's the 7th of February.
Yeah, so this we will.
Yeah, that was.
It.
Yeah, and I put the 14th for week 4. So also that we should shift.
Yeah. So because for this week the deadline is 7th, right? So then we can shift it, or maybe we can shift it even by Monday. So then because we wanted to discuss solution in open office hours.
Yeah, that will make.
Yeah. So anyways, maybe you can let us know what format you prefer, if during office hours we show you the solution or just this Q&A format. So maybe this way works fine and we can just answer your questions and then record homework and then you can watch it not necessarily on Monday. No. Okay, so should we start with this one?
Sure. Should we start with the questions or should we start with week 3?
Okay, yeah. Maybe let me stop sharing my screen and then Ankush, you want to say a few words about week 3?
No, maybe you can open the GitHub. That might be better.
I already closed it.
I think, yeah. So, hi. As I guess everybody knows, we have already released the videos for week 3. Week 3 would basically cover some basics of data warehouse and some in-depth about BigQuery. There are slides which I'm using throughout the videos, and they are already part of this README, as you can see on the top. And then there are different partitions for BigQuery. Basically, we first talk about data warehouse and BigQuery a bit. Then we talk a bit about partitioning and clustering. Then where to use clustering, where to use partitioning and all. And after that, I think we are digging into the best practices for BigQuery. I have also added some more videos which are a bit more advanced. So if you want to skip them, feel free to skip them. They would not be necessary to work with BigQuery. It's just that they might be interesting for you if you really want to dig deeper into BigQuery as a solution. And those videos are basically internals of BigQuery and machine learning on top of BigQuery. So in the last section of deploying, I think there's one more if you go down. Yes, so BigQuery machine learning deployment, and that's also basically covering basically how to pull the model from BigQuery and then deploy it on a Docker image or something. So feel free to take a look at it if you are interested. If not, then feel free to skip because the homework is not based upon that, and neither would be the final practical be based upon that. And I've also added all the important links, which I kind of use as a reference in the videos. So you can definitely take a look into them directly, basically. Yeah. Yeah, we have already attached the homework, so feel free to attempt that. I think we're going to already extend the deadline. We discussed that. But yeah, have fun, enjoy.
Yeah, and what is important that this week homework is about preparing for the next week. So you better do homework. But as we also discussed in Slack, that it might be a bit tedious because you will need to execute these DAGs for many runs. Like you need to run it many times, and if your machine is slow, you just make sure that your DAG works for a couple of runs. And then what you can do, if you have AWS account, you can use transfer service to transfer the files. So there are multiple ways to prepare for week 3. Transfer service is the easiest way, but you also need to practice, to have a bit of practice with Airflow. So you need to do the homework, but you don't have to run it for all the dates, basically.
Yes.
So transfer service is a good alternative that it's just one click and then a couple of minutes and all the data is in GCP bucket. That's quite convenient.
Definitely.
Anything?
And yeah, I think maybe Sejal wants to add. There's just one more video left from week 3, and maybe Sejal can take that.
Yeah, just like week 2, we'll be having a workshop also for week 3, just like week 1 and week 2, that is. And this practical would involve using the same Airflow setup, the same DAGs that you prepared for week 2. We'll be just extending it a bit. And if you noticed the GCP DAG, where in the end result is uploading the the BigQuery external table is actually fetching the schema from your uploaded raw data set in GCS. And then you have a queryable view in terms of looking at what the data is. So it would be similar to that. Only thing is we'll be having a bunch of tables. So this is also related to the homework of week 2. So try it out, and yeah, and the workshop will be really, based on would be more approachable once you finish the week 2 homework.
I was reading comments about the high performance hoodie. That's fine. Sorry. Okay, so you
So
finished,
Alexa,
right?
for next week, you need to wear something different, man.
This is the streaming hoodie.
Or this is like your wash cycle. Did we get you on a new wash cycle every week? So basically, you wash on
It's not
Saturday
like
and then
I'm washing this thing like all the week. Like
I
I
don't
mean, I'm
know,
wearing this
maybe
thing out, but you never know. So
I think
maybe if you want to find out, you can come this Thursday if you live in Berlin and check because we have like a meeting. We go to lunch, so you can come and check which hoodie I'll be in.
I think I will be waiting for photos. I'm in India right now, but the next time it happens, I'm definitely going to catch up.
Alexei, please bring a hoodie, an additional hoodie if you have one. I would like one for myself
You
too.
can buy it in Zalando. I don't know. Maybe there is. I can include an affiliate link in in the video descriptions. Anyways, should we start with questions?
Yeah.
So, what will be the format of submissions for week 2 homework? We haven't created a form yet, have we? But it will be the same as week 1. So there will be a Google form, multiple choice questions, and we will have to trust you that you actually do the homework, you code, because you can guess some of the answers without doing the work. But as we said, if you do this, you will not be able to work in week 3. So you better do that properly. And maybe I'll include like a checkbox in the form that you pinky swear that you did the code. And of course, you'll have to include the link to the code. So we may, if we have time, randomly pick a few submissions and check it. So you should do the code. Should I add anything or?
Oh, good. Maybe I can take this question. So where does Terraform come into picture? I didn't use it so far since I installed it in week 1. So I'm surprised that you weren't able to connect the dots on this one, because the infrastructure that we created for GCP, which is the GCS bucket as well as the BigQuery dataset, was created by Terraform. And if you did run basically run the GCS tag, the Airflow tag, to upload the data to GCS, and then view the data in the GCS data in the GCS external table. This is where your infrastructure created from the previous week is used. So I I don't know if you followed through the videos and understood the concept behind these things, but if you've skipped the Terraform and GCV part and went for the local installation and the local setup to use Airflow and Docker with Postgres only, this is also fine if you're running out of time. So yeah, these are the two journeys we've prepared. One is a cloud-based journey and the other one is a local setup, which for those users who are unable to install GCP or are unable to access GCP, you have a local setup. So if you're going for a Postgres based operation, that is also completely fine. Do you guys want to add something to this?
Maybe I would add that this is a useful thing anyways, regardless of whether we use it for week 2 or not. So knowing it is quite helpful. Because I'm sure as a data engineer, you will have to use it at some point.
Exactly. And I think that was my point, that we added Terraform for the basis that you will learn it eventually. And the idea was that we introduce it to you to the level that you get comfortable with it, and you can then extend your knowledge on top of it, especially depending upon your role in the company.
Will we use Terraform in other weeks? I think yes, right? Like, I don't know, like about Spark, I still need to figure out like how exactly it works with Google Cloud. There is probably managed Spark like in AWS, and that could be created through Terraform as well.
Yeah.
Even the BigQuery tables can be created by Terraform or by Airflow operators. Either way, so we'll disclose the information on that in the next few days.
We are already using it in week 2 in the transfer service. So we are doing something manually, but that manual steps are just to make it easy for you. Like if you do it in a company or in production systems, you should always use Terraform to set up something like a transfer service.
Yeah, thank you. So in what scenario should I use a database like Postgres instead of something like Google Cloud Storage Data Lake? Does somebody want to take that?
So I can take it. In the courses specifically, I think we cover Postgres mainly because it's easier and many people couldn't set up a Google Cloud account. So then it's a nice alternative because at the end you still have a database and you can query the data and you can load the data. So you still get the concept and get to practice that. In real life, I've seen it only in the smaller companies. So since it's also very easy to set up, it's an easy way to start, not locally. You would have it probably in an instance or something like that. So a little bit more of a setup, but I would say at least what I've seen, it would be under that scenario. Anyone wants to add something more?
Maybe I would add that Postgres is originally created and still is intended to be used as a transactional database, not as analytical database, which means that this is for, let's say you have an e-commerce shop and then you have, like, I don't know, this basket with all your orders. So this is for this kind of queries, or I don't know, like a block or something like this. So when you have some transactions and then it has this the transactions, consistency, and all that. And you would use different databases for analytical workloads when you want to analyze a lot of data. Some of these databases are actually based on Postgres, like, for example, Redshift or Greenplume, or there are quite a few of them that are based on Postgres. But you don't use, usually you can, but you don't usually use plain Postgres for these kind of things. But for local setup that we have right now, this is just the easiest way, and it can work reasonably well up to quite a lot of databases, quite large databases. I don't think we will hit actually this performance bottlenecks of Postgres in this course, because you need to have a lot of data for this for us to notice. Anything else? Yeah, so for this one, maybe I can take this. How can I set execution date in Airflow to past? For example, January 2019. For that, you probably haven't watched the 1 hour 20 minutes video, but spoiler, this question is covered there. I do not remember which minute, somewhere at the beginning. Yeah, but maybe you can skip it until you see, like, rewind until you see it, and then you pause, you take a look, and then you don't have to watch the entire video. I know it's quite long and probably daunting. Like when you see, okay, the next video is 1 hour 20 minutes long. It's probably sorry about that. But yeah,
Mhm.
the answer is there.
I would just like to add to that. So not specifically to execution date, but in terms of the announcement on the best practices video. So Alexi and I just discussed today that I think rather than creating a separate video for best practices, it would be best if we merge together so that I prepare more of a text-based version with the time codes to the Airflow Postgres video that Alexi has prepared. These would provide reference links to what concepts Alexi has explained, including idempotency and also using Airflow configuration variables such as execution dates and also backfilling and so on and so forth. So yeah, so I'll be sharing that by today or tomorrow. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Thank you. Tejal, you want to try that?
So I had issues with Airflow Docker Compose Up command, but after removing the triggerer, it appears to have worked. Could you explain why that could be? Okay. So yeah, the official Airflow setup, like I mentioned in the documentation, is quite overwhelming because they have decided to provide at a default level all of the services that are required for a multi-node setup. Now the workshop that we have is using a single machine. So a multi-node setup, which is more compatible with scalable clusters, for example, is not is not suitable for our single machine configuration, especially if we are just working on, say, 8 GB RAM. So yes, all the fancy this is also why I made an recent announcements and created the no frills version, where we are removing out unnecessary services such as the Redis queue, which enables a multi-node setup, also the triggerer, etc., workers, etc. Only the main things that are required are actually the scheduler, the executor, which is not a Celery executor or a multi-node executor, but instead a single node executor, which is a local executor. And along with that, the web server, because if you want to use a GUI-based platform for Airflow. So yeah, this is why your memory or your RAM and CPU usage was conserved, and this is why it worked for you. Alexi, do you want to add anything to this?
But maybe, yeah, when it comes to this smaller version of Airflow, if you have problems with it like me, maybe it's worth trying to giving it a try and run it on cloud virtual machine. So this is where I don't have any problems with this, because there are, I see other questions about because this Airflow being memory intensive, resource intensive. So the best way I solved it for me personally is using a cloud virtual machine. So on my Windows computer, yeah, it's with my Chrome open at the same time. It's not ideal. So you have to choose either Chrome or Docker Compose with Airflow. And yeah, Chrome is quite useful. So that's why I opted to do it on virtual machine. So maybe it will work out for you as well.
Looks like it's time to buy a new machine.
Yeah, I just did. So I think I bought this computer like a couple of months ago.
Ah.
And it's already, but I blame Chrome. So Chrome is so like, I don't know, no matter how good your computer is, the moment you open a couple of tabs in Chrome, it just says, okay, there is new RAM, there is some RAM, let me take it. And then there's nothing, not much left for the rest of the processes. So
Interesting.
So this is a related question from Alvaro. Airflow seems to be very resource intensive for running a couple of scripts. What kind of workflows benefit greatly from it? Does anyone want to take it?
Yeah, I think this is related to the orchestration. Since you've covered the orchestration part, the concepts, Alexi, maybe you can take this one. But just like, my 2 cents here is like Airflow is definitely meant for orchestration of multiple jobs, sometimes even parallel or asynchronously running jobs. So it's not really meant for like, sequential run or like a small scale usage, but definitely for more resource intensive jobs. But yeah, Lexi, you can add to this.
So the Airflow itself is quite heavy indeed, but the benefits that it gives you, like all this try mechanism, all this UI, you can see the history. This is very useful the moment you have more than, I don't know, 3-4 DAGs running in parallel. So when you have one, Airflow might be an overkill, but if you know that you're going to have more pipelines, more workflows, then it's time to think about some workflow orchestration tool. It doesn't have to be Airflow, but Airflow is quite widespread. So like let's say if you're making it now, you have a team and you're making a decision which workflow orchestration tool to use. Airflow would be quite a good choice because data engineers on the market know it. People, data scientists also know it, more or less. So usually, like this is a good tool, but there are of course disadvantages that it is indeed resource intensive, and then it needs to run somewhere. So you typically don't set it up on your computer. And there is a related question like how close to your usual data engineering role are the workflows demonstrated. It seemed you were not used to Docker Compose with Airflow. So maybe I can comment to that, add a comment for that, like because we have, at least in my workplace, we have Airflow instance set up for us. So me as a data scientist, I would just go to an instance of Airflow that is managed by data engineers, also DevOps engineers, and I would just use this. So I never needed to actually run it on Docker Compose. So yeah, but yeah, the moment you have more than multiple DAGs, an orchestration tool will be quite useful. I would personally maybe go with Luigi because this is my favorite one. But if I need to think about other people as well, very few people know Luigi, not many like it. So maybe Airflow would be actually a better choice if you consider bigger. Yeah. Anyways, so.
I would also like to add to the third question on Docker Compose, but when we come to that, we can talk about it.
So this one, right? So maybe I marked this answered, and
yeah.
You meant this one, right?
Yeah. So how close to your usual data engineering role are the workflows demonstrated? It seemed you were not used to Docker Compose with Airflow. Is it rarely used? We are used to Docker Compose with Airflow, but not in a style where we use the official setup, because it's like I was seeing it for the first time as well, but it's unnecessarily complicated, especially with the XCOM variables and so on and so forth. Generally, Docker Compose acts as a wrapper to your Docker containers. So in most production workflows, the Docker containers themselves are used in integration with your CI/CD pipelines or wherever you're going to deploy it. Docker Compose, only the Docker Compose part can be helpful in your development environments. So in case you have, let's say, a mocked version of your Airflow environment from production, and you want to test some DAGs on your local development environment, then you can just use Docker Compose to make things easier for you. Just running simple commands like Docker Compose up would make it fine. Otherwise, instead of running Docker run container name, etc., whatever you want to add. So yeah, it's just in terms of more convenience, but in terms of usage, it is generally used in development environments, not production.
So maybe what do you think about the first part of the question, like how close to your usual data engineering role are the workflows? Because the workflows I see at work, they're more complex. We have more steps. Probably this is the case also for you. But yeah, you need to start with something. And like we already have I wouldn't call it a complex pipeline, but there are 3-4 steps, which is already something. And then eventually it might grow bigger and bigger when we add other steps there.
I think I would also like to add that you will actually not, maybe if you're in cloud, you will not use Airflow and deploy it on Docker. Maybe you will actually use some service provided by the cloud provider itself, which is similar to Airflow. And I think internally it would be Airflow only, like Cloud Composer in Google Cloud Platform. And for that, you would be using Terraform.
And there is a related question, AWS step functions. Has somebody used them?
Yeah, I have used it for the AWS setup. So step functions in combination with Lambdas. Yeah, just in place of Airflow. But yeah, what Ankush said is also something that I wanted to say, like it really depends in production. Like if you have a self-hosted cluster on Kubernetes or wherever, and you want to use a very pure Airflow version, then your company, like, could have that kind of setup where you just use Airflow as it is, native Airflow as it is on a cluster, or you could have a cloud-based setup, and that is a more convenient option to use managed services such as Cloud Composer. AWS also has their own version now called Managed Airflow. So yeah, and particular to this question, how does AWS step functions compare to Airflow? If I have my infrastructure fully on AWS, should I use Airflow? If so, what would be a good case? I can try answering this. So in my previous setup, like I said, we had a bunch of Lambda functions that were coordinated their execution was coordinated by step functions. So this is how it would work in place of Airflow. And does anyone want to add to this? Maybe, I don't feel too articulate in the step functions area right now. So.
Okay, let me try. So I have not used step functions at all. And honestly, I've also not digged deep into Cloud Composer of Google Cloud Platform. But there are certain criteria you need to choose. And one of the biggest criteria is price. So if you think that your price would be super less in comparison to the price you will pay for maintenance, for developing this, for deploying this, and most probably in the future scaling it, then go ahead and use AWS step function. But if the price is just too high for your requirements and your use case, then maybe digging deeper into your own deployment of Airflow would be better. So that would really depend upon your use case and how do you calculate price.
I think AWS step functions are relatively cheap, but they do not have a as convenient UI as Airflow. So things are more complex there. This was my impression of not using them personally, but seeing a demo of AWS step functions at work. We tried one project and we decided not to use them because it wasn't as easy to configure these workflows. No. But I guess we're also more used to Airflow than, yeah. Okay. So should we go with the next question? So how can I deploy Airflow on Kubernetes? Is there a Kubernetes operator for Airflow?
Yes, there is, but again, I am not really a Kubernetes expert, so maybe Alexi, you can help answer.
So I'll do a bit of Googling for you. And you see that there is Kubernetes pod operator that probably can answer But yeah, there is an operator, and you can use Kubernetes for that. So it will internally, I think, will create a job, a Kubernetes job, and that it will just execute. What we use typically is not, oops, I think that's one. So what we use typically is not Kubernetes operators, but we use AWS batch operators, which is essentially the same thing, except you're not running it on Kubernetes, but on AWS batch. And this is, from what I see, this is usually the pattern of how exactly you use Airflow. So you do not use Python operators or bash operators. So you do not execute these things on the workers. You usually make workers pretty dumb, so they don't have a lot of resources, and they instead delegate to some external compute environment like Kubernetes, like AWS batch, maybe ECS, or uh, alternatives on Google Cloud or Azure. So there is you say how much resources you need for this specific job and where you want to run it, what is the Docker image, what are the parameters, and they are executed somewhere, not on the worker. So this is the pattern I see. Or like usually it's either SQL operators that you execute on BigQuery or Athena or Presto or something else, or this kind of AWS batch Kubernetes jobs, or Spark, for example. Did I answer that? I am trying to catch up, almost finished the first week. What should I do? Well, good job. You can just keep on working on that. So you almost finished the first week, so you can finish it and then start with week 2 and then finish it, and then there will be week 3. Yeah, just follow the sequence of videos we have in the playlist and in GitHub, and that should be sufficient, I think. And if you have any questions, go to Slack.
Just keep going.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, so almost finished the first week. This is a good sign, because the first week, as I see, was pretty tough for many people. We had a lot of problems with Docker and whatnot. So if you almost finish, this is a good sign. You're on a good track. So keep on working on this. So is there any plan for some hands-on on NoSQL database?
Okay, I can try. So when we were planning the syllabus, we actually removed NoSQL databases because we wanted to focus more on some of the most important tools of data engineering, and that's covering Spark, Kubernetes, Spark, data warehouse, and Kafka, dbt, and all that. So, and Airflow. But definitely NoSQL is an important part for data engineers to know. So maybe if it's the community really wants it, maybe we can develop some couple of videos on NoSQL and how to use, maybe giving an example of Cassandra or something.
I think we also ran a survey. Like before we started this course, we ran a survey, and there were 8 different topics. What the community wants to hear about. So analytics engineering was the first one, the top one in terms of preference, and NoSQL was the last one. Was it internals of NoSQL? I don't remember. So we were also we based our some of our decisions on that survey as well. So it seemed like there was not so much interest to NoSQL databases, but a lot more interest on analytics engineering, and that affected the way we decided to come up with the syllabus for the course. Okay. Guess I can mark it as answered. And maybe, yeah, you can also let us know what specifically you have in mind, because NoSQL is such a broad term. Like, are you talking about Redis, or are you talking about Mongo or Cassandra, or what exactly? Or Dynamo? So how difficult do you expect the course to be? It's to be, okay.
To be. Yeah.
My parser broke. The course to be in the following weeks. I'm wondering if I need to allocate more time for the course. For me, week 1 was 12 hours and week 2 was 10. I don't know. Week 3 seemed lighter to me than what we did previously because we don't need to do a lot of local setup. I think this local setup is where most of the time was spent, right? Is it the case? Am I correct?
I think so.
But then there is week 4, which I don't know how complex it is to set things up.
No, I think
It's cloud-based, right, Victoria?
yeah, it's cloud-based, and then there's the option of installing it locally, but then it's just doing simple pip install or brew install or something like that. We can also provide the links to use a Docker image now that everyone is a Docker expert. But it shouldn't be super hard in terms of installation. I would expect a little bit maybe more complexity on trying to understand the whole concept, but the project is simple, so hopefully you can follow along with the videos.
And I would like to add the same as for week 3 as well. Most of the setup that we've done is already available from week 1 and week 2. Only thing is we had to extend that setup to add more BigQuery tables. So yeah, there would be no time, barely any time invested on the setup side of things. So yeah, and definitely no Docker or Docker related issues. Hopefully, okay.
Yeah, but then we have week 5, which is about Spark, and for Spark we need to have a JVM, which is short for Java Virtual Machine, for those who don't know. And we will need to install this locally, and we need to install a specific version of Java Virtual Machine. It should be, I think, 8th or 11th. Yeah, but they already have like a tutorial for that for Windows, because on Windows this is where things usually get tricky. Yeah, and I think for Kafka we will also need to use JVM, right, to have a JVM. So, but
Yes,
hopefully it will be smoother.
Yeah, for Kafka, we are planning to do Docker. And I guess you will not run into the JVM issue, but you might run into memory issues, like out of memory, basically what Alexa just said. Yeah, and I hope we can figure or work around that. Maybe turning out or shutting down Chrome.
Yeah. Seems to be like maybe you can just use browser from your phone, and maybe it's more convenient. Somehow on phone it works better than on my computer. I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe Firefox.
Yeah, but also like the amount of time you need to allocate also depends. Maybe this is if this is your first experience with Docker, then yeah, it could be tough. And there is nothing wrong with this. And we cannot know the background of everyone to give a good estimate of how exactly how much time you will spend. What we will do, however, is at the end of each week when you submit your homework, we will ask you how much time you spent on watching the videos and doing the homework. So then we get a better understanding of how much exactly time you spent on these things. So because for us, this is the first time we're doing the course, it's very hard to have a good estimate, and everyone has different backgrounds, which make it harder. So, but yeah, I think it should be less. But then for week 4, it's also cloud-based. Yeah, let's see. Hopefully, not so much time. Okay, I think I answered that. So, what is the best strategy to update records on a Parquet file or BigQuery? How about appending data to Parquet files?
Ankush, do you want to take that?
I can try. Can you append to a Parquet file?
I think what they probably meant was, I think Alexi and I were also talking about this, that for incremental loads, and since the end result of week 2 has a BigQuery external table, I think by default it's not an append only mode, right, Alexi?
Yeah, so when I was executing it, I saw, so I executed like a bunch of ducks runs. And then when I went to BigQuery to see the results, it was the same table that we created after the first duck run. So basically it didn't append to that table for some reasons. I don't know why, but then I think I saw in week 3 videos that the way we create like the statement when we create a table, it needs to use some kind of sort of wildcard, right? So we say that it's 2019, then minus, then star, and then BigQuery picks up all the files with that match this pattern. Probably this is how you do this typically. I don't know. I'm not a BigQuery expert, but yeah, at least for this week, for week 2, you will need to upload data to Google Cloud Storage. You will not need to create these BigQuery tables, and then we will create a BigQuery table in week 3, and Ankush will show you. I saw this in the video, like there is a SQL statement for creating a table.
Yeah. So okay. So in BigQuery, yes, you need to use wildcards to pick up multiple files. And if that's the aim of doing it, I will still not append to a Parquet file because Parquet files are not meant for that purpose. They're not like append only kind of files. They are more like columnar storage. So basically, if you append, you need to rewrite the whole thing. And in that case, I will not suggest that. So basically, keep it open-ended, like close the file after you are done writing to it, and then most probably let BigQuery do the read. On the same side, if you are writing to a BigQuery table internally, then what happens, and I think that's also covered later on in the videos. What internally BigQuery does is it figures out that, hey, you know what, after a couple of writes, let's say an hour or so, it figures out that there is a misbalance between your structure, the internal file structure, and it reclusters or automatically reshuffles the data and creates a new file for you. So you don't really have to worry about them, and there is no cost on your side for it. But that's how internally BigQuery does that, if that was the question.
So maybe I can add a few words to that. So the way I saw it usually happens is you have a folder in a data lake that for a specific date, let's say. So first the structure is the name of the whatever table, then year, month, date, and then within this folder you have a bunch of Parquet files. And then if you want to add more information, you just add another Parquet file to that folder. And then this way you get more data to this partition. I think that's the right word.
Yeah.
It would be really helpful if you can make one video per week per your comfort that summarizes that week's concepts for our better understanding. Maybe you can tell us what are the problems you have, what are the concepts you have problems with, and we can again maybe can ask you to help us with that. And perhaps it could be written, it doesn't have to be a video. And if there are some concepts that you have troubles understanding, you can just ask, then others will answer, and then we'll have it in some sort of document that you can use to make sure you really understand that. So that would be one suggestion.
Yeah, and I wanted to add something to that, Alexi. I think we have also updated summarized notes like on the repository. So yeah, for week 1 and week 2, it's already there, and possibly we like based on the other instructors' convenience, they will be releasing it for their other weeks also. So my understanding was this would be a summarization or like, a wrap up of like, if you ever want to go back and reference or just like, recall whatever you learned, that would also be a good place to go and revise.
Please let us know what are the concepts that are hard to understand. And it's also useful feedback for us. Next time when we record something, maybe we will try to understand it clearer, or at least we will know that okay, maybe this thing needs more understanding, more explanation. So this is the deadline for week 2, 7th of February. Let me see. It is 4th right now, 4th of February. So because this is, I think we released the homework on Friday. So this is Friday.
Right now, today is 31st.
Yeah, so the deadline is 4th. I'm not sure where 7th comes from. Is it because it's next Monday? Yeah, because I think at the beginning we did talk about this, making it for Monday. Maybe this is something we'll talk internally and we'll see how you're doing. But right now the deadline is Friday, so stick to that deadline, and we cannot promise that it will be not Friday. So in GitHub page for homework 2, you mentioned to ingest NY taxi data for 1921, and homework 2 description, however, it's 1920. Should it be till 21 or 20? So in week 3, we use for yellow taxi data, we use, which years do we use, Ankush?
I think 2018 to 2020.
Yeah, so for yellow taxis, you need that. And
for FHV, frequently high used or something heavyweight vehicles, I think it was 2019.
Yeah, so you will need that. And for zones, it's just one file. So
yeah, zones is just one file.
And in week 4, Victoria, we use only 1 month, right?
Whatever you load, basically, in week 3. So it would be, I understand the one from 2019 to 2020, right? But so since we're going to be building the model, it would be independent, or it would just use whatever it's in the table. So if they don't get to do the homework or something like that, then if at least they have 1 month, it should be enough for them to run the models.
Yeah, so I'll try to update the description, and so it's less confusing. But yeah, so for somebody for yellow taxi, it's 19 and 20, and for higher vehicles, it should be 19. And we don't use green taxis for the next week.
Not for week 3.
Could you do a high-level overview of the week 2 homework and what main points we should be getting out of this? Yes. So let me open it. So that's the homework. And the first 2 questions are about yellow taxi data. So you will need to write a DAG for ingesting, for putting this to Google Cloud Storage for years 19 and 20 for yellow taxi. Then there is some information what you might need to do in order to, so in this week, in the video about Airflow, you get some code that you can use as a starter for putting files to Google Cloud Storage. So you will need to change them a little bit, or maybe not a little bit, but you will need to change them. And so here, this bunch, this instruction tells you what exactly you will need to do in order to re-execute this. So you will need to set up catch-up parameter to true. Then you should be careful with running many jobs in parallel. Some students reported they had problems with this. So their computer froze when they tried to execute many jobs in parallel. Even the virtual machine in the cloud also had problems with that. So don't do that. And then this is an important thing, you need to rename your DAG. So if you don't, Airflow will not discover, it will not see that changed. So let's say if, depending on your answer here, like if the answer is different from what is currently there, then you will need to do a rename, right? So for Airflow, in order to pick this up, right? And then also because we change the start date, also Airflow will need to sort of rediscover it. That's why you will need to change the name. And yeah, there is one extra thing that you might need to do, because these files are quite large. It will be helpful to manually remove them so they don't take a lot of space. Then question 3 is about these 4 hire vehicles. So you will just need to do the same thing as you did for the yellow taxis, but for this data set. And then question 4 is the same thing, but for zones. And then eventually this thing will become a form, and you can use that form to submit. Like it will be the same way as week 1. think it's a good high-level overview. And the main points here that you will learn how to create a DAG, you will learn how to move data from this web to your Google Cloud storage, and then the other thing is you will have data for week 3. I think that's all. Did I miss anything? So I think I read somewhere that there will be a MLOps Zoomcamp after this one. Am I right? Who took data engineering Zoomcamp is in a good condition to go to the MLOps Zoomcamp. So I guess that you're right. There will be. Maybe there is a bit of a spoiler you saw here. There is already a repo here, which I don't think contains anything. Yeah, not a lot of content. But yeah, there will be a course eventually. Ideally, good book.
Maybe once we take a break from the data engineering
Yeah,
course
exactly.
vacation, I'm going to go on a long vacation and recuperate until I come back.
We cannot do any ML course without you.
But so these courses, they are not dependent on each other. So you don't, data engineering Zoomcamp is not a prerequisite for MLOps Zoomcamp. So yeah, so these are two separate courses. And but yeah, I think if you took this one and you understand everything, so it wasn't too difficult for you, and you were able to finish it, then I think you're in perfect condition for the MLOps Zoomcamp. And what is more useful probably for that one is actually the machine learning Zoomcamp, because there we already talk about things like deployment, Kubernetes, and things like that. That one would be more useful. Really not able to understand week 2 homework. Please explain in detail. Thank you. I'm not sure if this question appeared after the attempted explanation or before.
Maybe you should try to go through it again. Or
Yeah,
not the whole thing, maybe.
I'm afraid if I go over it again, it will be the same words. So I'm not sure what else I can add here. Maybe if you want specific instructions, let me do that. So there is in week 2 in Airflow folder in DAX, there is this data ingestion DAG. You saw this in, you saw this in the video, right? And then there is another, so you will actually need to take that and modify it, adjust in order to turn this into a DAG that runs from, where's the homework? So that runs for this yellow taxi data that gives you this data, right? That puts this data to Google Cloud Storage. So you use this as your base, and then on top of that, you work on this, you change, you modify this code that copies all this data to Google Cloud Storage. What will be also quite helpful for you is this DAX local, this data ingestion local. So this is a script, the code from that long video that actually shows you how you can parameterize your jobs. And what I did, so when I was solving the homework, so what I did is I took, where it is, it's gone. So I took that script for GCP, and then I took some things from here, and then I merged them, and I got, as a result, the solution for the first 2 questions. And then I think once you do this, you will figure out how exactly you should approach the remaining ones. I hope I didn't give away too much. Didn't spoil you the fun of figuring this out yourself. Did I miss anything?
I think that was a very good explanation again. But if you still have questions, feel free to use the Slack channel. I guess that would be the best place, because there you can actually put specific examples you are struggling with or specific errors you are seeing. And I'm pretty sure the community can help you there.
So next one, can we use Azure blob storage instead of AWS to transfer to GCP?
Yes, yes, you can. But I think this is related to the transfer service, right? So yes, you can. But the only question is that the data which we are using is on AWS. So if you want to run and like test around with some other data source, then feel free to do this. And also leave a comment. Maybe we will know how it goes with AWS with Azure Blob Storage.
Will the future iterations of the ML and DE Zoomcamp have the same videos and the only difference being the homework? It's too early to talk about future iterations of data engineering Zoomcamp, I think. But for ML Zoomcamp, yes, the videos will be the same. The only difference being the homework. That's still up to discussion. So I don't know. So we will see.
Yeah, I think we had a slight discussion about this in the last I think when we met. I think it was Wednesday or something, and we are not sure if we are going to repeat the ML and DE Zoom camp. But let's see upon the response and on the participation. So if we feel that it was definitely a success, we will definitely do that. So feel free to pass around the course and make it so that we know, give us some feedback so that we can maybe make a better decision.
And re-recording the videos, it's just too much effort. So I don't think I'll want to do this. Let's say for the same for ML Zoomcamp, for example. That just was too much effort, and I'd rather reuse the same videos instead of making new ones. Not a question, but kudos. Just wanted to inspire you guys to go on. Your course is great. Thank you very much. Big heart. Does it look like heart?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much, guys. I think this is what keeps us going.
I hope the videos are good. So we don't need to, if we decide to rerun it, we will not need to re-record them. But yeah, we will see. And we still have one more minute, right? So in this week prerequisites, you recommended to set memory for your Docker engine to minimum 5 GBs. Where do I do this? My Airflow web server is not going up.
I can answer that. So I'm not sure if you've seen the video, but I've already explained over there using Docker. If you're using Docker setup, then where you can actually change your configuration to increase your memory. If you're not using a Docker setup, then there are special instructions, especially for Linux VMs, that we can update in the FAQ in order to be able to do that. Alternatively, if you maxed out your memory usage, that is, let's say if your machine only provides up to 4 GB and you cannot extend it further, then I suggest using the no frills version or using a cloud VM to be able to use this. So that you don't have to deal with manually configuring these things. You can, Alexi, you can
yeah, I'm checking.
point to resources. Yeah, in resources.
In resources.
Okay, so I actually showed it away. Maybe go to advanced. Okay, in my machine, it's generally under resources.
I think it's like it's controlled by how much resources this WSL2 or VSL2, I don't know how to pronounce it, how much resources the backend has. Yeah, so it says resources resource limits are managed by Windows, and you can configure that. Yeah, so I on Windows didn't have problems with that. I think the way it works on Ubuntu is, yeah, Docker can get everything that you have on your host machine. I think on Windows with VSL2 is similar. and on in macOS you saw that how to do this in the videos. But also my computer doesn't like when I do Docker Compose up, so it's a bit heavy.
I read somewhere that Docker Compose does not have that level of maturity and compatibility with Windows or WSL. I think the GitHub issues link that I sent you yesterday also had explicitly stated that. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
I
that's
think
Windows haters, right? That they just create fake accounts and write them.
I am definitely one.
Or maybe not fake accounts. Yeah. So does anyone want to write a book? Not today.
Maybe after a long break.
yeah,
Let's finish
definitely.
the video first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the thing with the ML Zoomcamp is I already had a book, and then I thought, okay, maybe I should do a course. But here, yeah, that's different. But actually,
But good idea though.
so I think maybe Alvaro, if you're watching this, I think you could be quite good at writing books because the notes that you have here in your repo, they're quite comprehensive. So you can just take this markdown and then go to O'Reilly and then tell them, hey, look what I have. But anyways, so maybe you don't have to go to O'Reilly, but I think notes from Alvaro are quite good. And other notes as well are quite good. Just Alvaro has been doing this for quite a while. He was also taking a lot of notes for the other course. So that's why, and he's always first to submit his notes in pull requests. So yeah, thanks for doing a great job with notes.
Yeah, feel free to use them. Just share the royalties with us. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all for this week. Yeah, thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so
See you soon.
much. Enjoy.